scores were Brooks Koepka, Victor Hovland,
nice.
Xander Schauffele, and Hideki Matsuyama. All my guys made the cut. My one guy won, and I think Victor came in third. JC had Rory, Jason Day, Colin Morikawa, who played well, and Scheffler. So all his guys played pretty well too.
Wow.
But,
were you live on the air when the Scheffler? Because I had to do a show in Atlanta. Actually, was filling in on the Buck Belue show from 10 to 11, and we're having to give like the up. He was supposed to tee off at 10:08. So we're literally giving updates on him walking to the tee box, making sure he didn't go back to the clink. Were you on the air when all that was going down?
Well, we had, I mean, I was on like right when it happened. So, we talked about it briefly, but again, it was a huge misunderstanding. Mike, as you know, at sporting events, you guys have passes to drive into places, and I blame this whole thing on the law enforcement and the PGA Tour, because every player in the tour has a cell phone, and they have to have some way they all communicate. All they had to do was say, there's been a fatal wreck. We're going to drive this way to get into Valhalla.
Right.
I really don't understand why it all happened the way it did. Supposedly all the charges are going to be dropped, which they should. Still an unfortunate happening, but man, what drama it caused there at the PGA Championship.
It's crazy.
Nothing we'll ever see again.
No, I mean, I was thinking about it because, again, I knew we were going to have to talk about it, even though I don't like talking about things like that as they're happening, because people just they feel the need to make a hard take, a hot take, and it's just like, we don't know the facts. Like, stop acting like you know what Scotty Scheffler did and what he did. Oh, this is another sign of privilege, and like everybody's trying to like be on Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless. Like, we're not going there. I'm not going there. But I was trying to think, like, okay, we've had some guys flake out Super Bowl week, right? We've had guys get arrested. We've had guys go on wild journeys in Mexico. We've had guys do all kinds of stuff the week of the Super Bowl, but that was days before the big game. Was it a distraction? Yes, but it didn't actually, you could make the argument it really didn't have an impact on the game. This happens the morning of, literally hours before he's about to tee off on day 2 of a major. I've never seen anything like that, but thankfully it all, I guess, got resolved in its own way. The Schauffele, and kudos to you for thinking of him, and you're certainly much more boned up on golf than I am, but whenever a guy like that wins his first major, I immediately feel like the need to find out more about him. And you probably know all this already, but he's a West Coast guy, and he played over there at San Diego State, and obviously was a good player. But what impresses me most about a guy like Schauffele, Shane, is that, with all due respect to DeChambeau, I don't want golf to turn into just like a bunch of huge, beefed up meatheads that can outdrive everybody, and it's kind of become like a slow pitch softball looking event. When you take a look at the body frame of Schauffele, he's 5'10", $175. Like, that still impresses me when a normal sized guy can just dominate a sport like golf. So it was cool to see him win.
Yeah, and 5'10" is being, that's 5'10" in the program. He ain't 5'10". And here's what, DeChambeau hits it a long ways because he swings hard, and his clubs are tweaked different than everybody else's. So his 7-iron is not the same 7-iron everybody else. He bends his clubs for the loft. So, I mean, he hits it a long way. Schauffele hits it a mile, Mike. He averages like 325 driving the golf ball.
It's amazing.
He mashes it too. So he's a tremendous story. As you said, I did read something. He started his career at Long Beach State and then transferred to San Diego State, and his caddy was one of his teammates. But I think I was reading somewhere he got paired up early in his career with Patrick Cantley, who was like, I think the USAM at UCLA. I don't know if this was a tournament before they got to college or whatever, but whatever coach paired him with Patrick Cantley. Okay, we want to see where Xander stands. Well, Xander shot like 74, Cantley shot like 62. And the moral of the story was, I got to get better at golf. And he's a good dude, man. I'm happy for him. 30 years old. He's been knocking on the door for a long time, but it was an exciting golf tournament, which I liked, but I thought Valhalla is way too easy for these guys. There's no way in a championship. He broke the scoring record, which had been 20 below, 20 under in majors. He shoots 21. Second place shoots 20 under. That should never happen in a major, but it was fun to watch, a lot of drama. And, I know a lot of people here. Tony said the traffic cop had no idea what to look for on the PGA Tour Pro's vehicle. He was the only there because of the accident. Every cop who was there knew the actual tournament, knows who Scotty Scheffler. Yeah, it was crazy. And speaking of that, we got a text on the Titan, our text line, Mike. This is from Larry in Dothan, Alabama. He says, Mike, what would you have done if you were witnessing the Scheffler arrest like some of the other media guys did Friday morning? I think it was Jeff Darlington was there.
Oh my goodness.
Guys.
And Jeff Darlington is a very good NFL reporter. If you want to know who the New England Patriots are going to take in the second round, that's your guy. I don't know Jeff that well. We know a lot of the same people. I don't think Jeff woke up that morning as a guy who typically doesn't cover golf, and certainly a guy that doesn't have to do stories about law and order. I don't think he had that on his bingo card, that he was going to be on SportsCenter and giving updates on an arrest of the number one player on the planet hours before he was set to tee off at a major. As I'm watching that, as I'm tuning in, I'm like, oh boy, this is not really in his wheelhouse. Thankfully, that's not what I do. Look, I like to think I can handle it. I mean, the closest thing I ever came to being on SportsCenter and having to do a live report was such as that. Not quite the same, but the year of COVID in the SEC tournament, I was in Nashville about to call a doubleheader. One game was Alabama, Tennessee. The other was Florida, Georgia. And we'd already gotten the memo that the day before that Greg Sankey had said, look, we're still going to play this thing. We're just not going to have any crowd in the arena. So we had Marty Smith was going to be our kind of sideline reporter, but outside where all the fans had to be at all the bars in Nashville. And myself and Jimmy Dykes were going to call it inside. And then all of a sudden the plug gets pulled. The producer says, Mike, I need you to sit down on a chair with a wireless mic underneath the basket, and SportsCenter might come to you at some point. And they had Carl Ravitch at one end, they had me at the other, and they went with Carl, which Carl's certainly been doing it longer than I have. And that's how it went down. But I just was thinking to myself, okay, what am I going to say about this other than the facts, which is we were supposed to play, and due to safety and health concerns, we weren't, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Tyler says Scheffler should have complied. He did. He did everything he was told to do by the PGA Tour. He showed his badges, and they even told him this is your route into the facility. So it was all a misunderstanding. Scheffler said that the other police officers at the police station were awesome with him, and you saw him interacting with them the day he got back to the course. So anyway,
no body cam footage, Shane. That's a no-no. There should have been body cam footage from the officer, which would have kind of helped explain how this escalated to the way it did. And mysteriously, there's no body cam footage.
Yeah, that is bizarre for sure. Mike, the Gators are now going to go in. They're getting into postseason play because they have a above 500 regular season record. Doesn't matter really what happens now in Hoover. Your thoughts? They go take two from the Dogs.
Well, kudos to Sully and that squad for coming up when clearly backs against the wall, clearly the most important 3 games they're ever going to play in the regular season anyway. and they came through against the hottest team going in Georgia. I mean, Georgia and Tennessee have been the hottest teams going for a while now. So kudos to that team that clearly, I mean, the season has not gone the way, as we've discussed many times on your show, it's not gone the way that anybody would have thought. This was a preseason top 10 team with perhaps the preseason player of the year in Caglione. I personally think Condon's going to win it. But look, it's a new slate. It's an absolute new slate. As you mentioned, regardless of what happens in Hoover, and covering the SEC tournament for years, I can tell you, the SEC tournament is the ultimate quandary for coaches, because if you already know you're in the tournament, and Florida basically knows it's not going to host, right? So, like, some teams are in there, they know they're in, but they still have a chance to host a regional or a super regional. Well, you still have motivation. Some teams, they have to win a couple of games to even know they're in the tournament. That's extra motivation. What do you do if you're Florida? You got a game against Vanderbilt, a single elimination game, and a lot of coaches would tell you they'd rather have the extra time off, save their pitchers, and get ready for a postseason run. They won't say that publicly, but behind closed doors, they would tell you. There used to be a motto before this new kind of wacky bracket. It used to be double elimination across the board, very similar to what Omaha is. And some coaches would behind the scenes would say, hey, we're going to go 2-Q. We're going to go El Dumpo, and we're just going to save our pitching for the postseason. That was a real thing. You're not supposed to do that, but a lot of teams would do it. So it's going to be very interesting for Florida, because I think Florida's fate has really already been sealed. You're going to be in the tournament, but you're not going to host. Would you like to win a couple games in Hoover? Yeah. Do you want to use up your pitching? No, I don't think so. I think you want to make sure you're primed to make a run in the regional.
Yeah, I think people don't want to hear me say this, but I think they're just going to act like this is a midweek game.
They won't be alone, Shane. Look, you're just being honest, and I can tell you that if Florida does that, they will not be alone. Keep in mind, too, that the previous series, Thursday through Saturday, so this is not your typical where you have 5 days between weekend series in the SEC, 4 or 5 days. It's a quicker turnaround, which means less rest. Pitchers, particularly college pitchers, are creatures of habit. You can't all of a sudden all year long, your guy's been going every, say, Friday or Thursday or Saturday, and then all of a sudden you're going to cut his days and rest in half. Like that typically doesn't work out real well. So it's not uncommon for a lot of these teams that already kind of feel like where they are is where they're going to be come Selection Sunday. So they will just throw out a midweek guy and treat it like a midweek game. I don't know what to expect out of Vanderbilt, talking about teams that were disappointments this year. I mean, Vanderbilt, really the last 2 years, they lost last year in a regional to Xavier. They clearly have had the toughest 2-year stretch since Tim Corbin got the job 20-some-odd years ago. So I don't know what they're thinking right now, but it'll be an interesting matchup. Tuesday, 4:30, and again, that is single elimination. If you're playing on Tuesday, you are either do or die before the other teams that have the byes get going.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, I forgot. Yeah, they play tomorrow. They ended the series there on Saturday, and then they were going straight from Athens over to Hoover. So you're exactly right. This is a midweek game. They're going to pitch whoever's been pitching on Tuesdays and Wednesday nights. And Sully is not going to – he does not care, because, as you mentioned, we are not trying to get one of the top 8 seeds. We have no chance of hosting. We're going to be a 3 seed somewhere. I don't know where. You got any thoughts of where we may go, Mike?
Oh, well, they did a good thing a couple of years ago. They extended it it used to be just 1 through 8, and then the matchups became painfully predictable because they would just do everything geographically. That's why you constantly had Florida versus Florida State or Florida State versus Miami, because their mindset was, well, we're saving money. But baseball they have enough money to travel. Okay. So now we see it 1 through 16. So that makes it a little less about geography and more about credentials. But if I had to make a guess is Florida is going to be traveling nearby. Like you said, if they're a 3 seed, now if they do some damage, they could certainly play their way into a 2 seed. But let's just say hypothetically they're a 3 seed. Generally, they'll put a 3 seed wherever is geographically convenient. I don't think anybody would want to play Florida as a 3 seed, quite frankly. I mean, when you get a 3 seed, that's supposed to be your reward for having a great regular season and getting a great matchup. You stick Florida in one of those brackets as a 3 seed, whoever the number 1 is going to be like, hey, what the heck, man? We earned a number 1 seed, and you're putting a preseason top 10 team as a 3 in our bracket? That kind of sucks for us.
But they can't they're not going to put an SEC team as a 4 seed. There's no way, right?
I don't know if that's ever even happened. No, because you have all those, it's just like basketball. You have all the automatic bids for all those lesser conferences, all 31 of them, I believe, 31 or 32. So, no, they're not going to be a 4. The worst they'll be is a 3 somewhere, and that somewhere will probably be not too far away.
Silverback Concrete builds firm foundations for generations. You stand on it. We stand by it. We got Mike Morgan from the SEC Network on the Titanamore Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Tip. Ponte Vedra Beach Bull Gator says on the Titanamore text line, 4 majors and players, the TPC courses should be set up for a winner to be -5 or 6 at the max. I'm with you, PB. Ponte Vedra Beach Gator. I agree 100%. All right, Mike, we got some more text here on the Titanamore text line for you here, and this is regarding college baseball. Matt asked, how many SEC teams, in your opinion, can make it to Omaha? Now, that's kind of difficult until we know where everybody is playing, but off the top of your head, take a guess, I guess.
Yeah. I had a buddy of mine in the media. He actually goes, because his show, they do remotes at a casino with a sports book. And he said, give me a couple of teams to bet on to make it to Omaha. And I said, well, the 2 from the SEC, if I had to pick 2, it would be A&M and Tennessee. I just think they're the most complete teams. And, he said, what about Arkansas? I love Arkansas's pitching. Arkansas probably has the best pitching staff in the country, but you got to hit. And that's still a concern for me. So I Texas A&M, Tennessee, to me, had the best odds. Arkansas has got enough offense where they could certainly get in there. Georgia, to me, offensively, fantastic, but pitching-wise, I don't see it. I just think that you've got to have a little bit more pitching to get there. But, what is the total number? I would say the over-under would be like 2.5. I think best case scenario, you're looking at 3. There's been a couple of times where the SEC has gotten 4 or 5, but I think realistically, to me, the SEC is incredibly deep this year, but I don't think they have the super teams that they've had in the past. I don't think they've had the teams that have had as dominating a pitching as they have in the past. In fact, I think this year in college baseball, pitching took a step backwards. And some people would say it's the bats and the balls. That's a whole other argument and a whole other discussion. But when I look at, for example, the draft board, and Hagen Smith of Arkansas is a bona fide top 5 pick, but you look at the first round of the SEC, not a whole lot of pitchers there, Shane. I'm used to seeing like 5, 6 guys, but there wasn't a Schemes. There wasn't, somebody like that. Out of the Vanderbilt doesn't have 2 or 3 guys that are projected to go early, and of course Florida doesn't either. It's just a weird year for the conference as a whole. So I'll go ahead and play it conservatively, and I'll say 2 teams from the league go to Omaha, and I'll predict A&M and Tennessee.
Yeah. Was it softball or baseball a couple of years ago had like 4 or 5 of the 8 teams at the World Series? I can't remember which one it was.
Well,
it was baseball.
Yeah, baseball had 4 a couple of times, which was the only league to ever do it. And then, I can't remember what year off the top of my head. One of your listeners will know it. Then they broke the all-time record, getting 5 of the 8. So, I mean, there's no other. The ACC has been the closest league to getting those kind of numbers, and really the ACC hasn't been able to do that. And of course, as we know, the ACC's only won 1 national title since the 50s. and that was Virginia. Remember, Florida State's never won it, and we're not counting Miami's titles because they weren't in the ACC when they did it. So the ACC, for all its strength as a conference overall, they haven't had great success in Omaha over the years. When it hasn't been the SEC, which it almost always is, it's been a team out west very often. It's been a Cal State Fullerton, somebody like that. At some point, somebody from the ACC has to emerge. Somebody from the Big 12 has to emerge. And, of course, now Texas is going to be an incredible addition to SEC baseball. Oklahoma's not bad either, but Texas especially, there's no reason why Texas should not be a regular visitor to Omaha and a regular contender for College World Series championships.
Text on the Titan Lamar text line here. This is Thomas, who says he's a big NBA fan. He says, Mike, are you surprised that the Nuggets blew a 20-point lead in Game 7 last night?
Oh, man. I couldn't believe that. I was watching the game live last night, and Denver is eviscerating Minnesota, and Anthony Edwards was looking awful. And you're just like, okay, well, this thing is done. And then all of a sudden, third quarter, Denver could not hit the broadside of a barn. They could not hit water if they fell out of a boat. And at the end of the day, you can analyze a basketball game in so many different ways, but you still have to make shots. And they did not make shots, and Minnesota started making a bunch of shots. And it was just a barrage. And believe it or not, I mean, for most of that run, it was not Anthony Edwards. It was a couple of SEC guys, not from Georgia, Karl Anthony Towns of Kentucky, and Naz Reid, one of those Will Wade recruits. I believe he's out of Connecticut, if I'm not mistaken. He's a Northeastern kid who was at LSU for 1 year and a hell of a player. He was the difference. He gave them huge minutes when Towns was in foul trouble and on the bench with 5 fouls, and Gobert was in foul trouble. Jokic almost fouled out the whole front line for Minnesota. And Naz Reid, who was a sixth man of the year, comes into that game and gives them unbelievable minutes. I thought he was the biggest factor in Minnesota turning it around.
So did Minnesota make the finals back in the days of Kevin Garnett, or they have this is their first opportunity to make the finals?
They made a Western Conference Finals. They never made the NBA Finals. So back in the day with Garnett, Marbury, I can't think of everybody off the top of my head on that team, but they were a pretty stacked group. They made it to the Western Conference Finals, but never made it to the NBA Finals. And I think, because to me, Boston, Indiana, I don't know. I haven't been able to get into any of the Eastern Conference matchups so far. The series I told you was the must-see was the one that just finished. I told you a couple weeks ago, Minnesota-Denver. If you don't watch any other NBA round, watch that. And it was great. It lived up to the hype. I think Minnesota-Dallas has a chance to be just as good. With Kyrie and Luka going up against Ant-Man and Towns, and I mean, I think that has a chance to another 7-game series that would be must-watch TV. Again, if you like pro basketball just enough, I think it'll carry the way for a few weeks.
Live a healthier lifestyle with our bold, flavorful smoothies and our amazing food. Tropical Smoothie. When you eat better, you feel better. A few more questions here for Mike on the Titan Lamar text line. This is Gary from Pensacola. He says, "What are y'all's thoughts on the wide receiver from Arizona State that the Gators just got?" I don't know if you keep up with the transfer portal, but I guess he was the top receiver last week. He committed. Last name is Badger. I think Elijah Badger is his name. Know anything about him, Mike?
I don't. Of course, the last guy that got from Arizona State worked out pretty well, didn't he?
Yeah, supposedly the rumors out there that Pearsall kind of knew this kid, and he basically says, "You saw how my career turned around. You need to do the same thing." So
he's a bigger kid. Yeah, I mean, I know he's a bigger kid. I think he's about 6'2". I don't know if he has the speed, the quickness, the route running that Pearsall did. That was elite. That's why the kid got drafted as highly as he did. As you reminded people before the draft even happened, he's one of the best players you ever saw, best wide receivers you ever saw come out of Gainesville. That's a strong statement, and obviously his draft status would tell you you were right on cue. But they clearly need some help at that position. I mean, the last couple of weeks have been pretty good for Florida, right? It's been some late portal pickups. But Graham Mertz's going to need some help. You know, you lose your top back to Georgia. You have to think the offensive line is going to be better, and you have to think what really was puzzling to me last year, Shane, was the amount of penalties, the pre-snap penalties, false starts, illegal motion, all those things at times for Florida looked really sloppy. And I have to think that's going to be cleaned up. And I have to think Mertz can only be better than he was last year, even though he loses his top target. And if you have just enough at the wide receiving position, you assume Wilson's going to be better. Like I want to believe that Florida's offense is going to be better in 2024 than it was 2023, and you hope that a kid like Badger can help them improve in that area.
Yeah, sticking with the Gators, Barry's question for you on the Titan and More text line is, Mike, looking at the Gator football schedule, what's your prediction?
I think that first half is so important because people talk about the strength of the schedule and I get it. It's tough, but we don't know if it's the toughest of all time. Like the back end is brutal. There's no doubt about that. All right. If you beat Miami in week 0 and you're going to beat Samford, A&M at home should be a winnable game. Mississippi State on the road should be a winnable game. UCF should be a winnable game. So, I mean, theoretically, you could go 5-0, and I would not be shocked. Then it gets hairy because you're going to be an underdog at Tennessee. You better beat Kentucky at home after that. You're going to be an underdog like everybody else against Georgia. You're going to be an underdog at Texas. You're going to be LSU has just been kryptonite for Florida. Home against Ole Miss, you're probably going to be an underdog because Ole Miss is like everybody's darling this year. They crushed it in the portal. They've got most of their key players, not named Judkins, coming back, including Jackson Dart. And then Florida State on the road. We don't know exactly what Florida State's going to look like. They lost a ton of people, but you would think maybe an underdog. Look, I think those first 5 games, it's imperative you get off to a good start. And to me, you should be able to get off to a good start. If Florida improved itself the way it should have in the offseason, there is no reason to think this team can't be 5-0 heading into Knoxville on October the 12th. So I can give you a prediction, but they're worthless. I can just tell you that I think it comes down to those 5. And you know how it is, Shane. The groundswell of negativity, if you lose a couple of those games early, it's palpable. It's in the air. It affects the locker room. It affects everything. It affects your show every day. It's just the negativity will be so much because there is not a person in the country who follows college football that doesn't have Sam Pittman and Billy Napier on the hottest of seats in the SEC. And if you start losing games early, that's going to be all the discussion surrounding the Florida program. But if you get off to a good start, you've got a chance to be one of the surprise teams in this league. If you get your you-know-what together and you get off to that good start, again, to me, 5-0 is not insurmountable. It's very capable with that schedule. Now, all of a sudden, maybe you can ruin the pity party and Billy Napier can prove that this program is truly on the rise.
I agree 100% because, you look at the schedule on paper, yeah, the names pop, what those teams did last year, but those teams are different. So many teams have new coaches, new quarterbacks. This is the year that Billy's got to get it done. I think he likes his roster. It's the best roster he's had. I will be disappointed, extremely disappointed, and surprised if we're not 5-0 to start the season. And then whatever happens, happens. But, Tennessee.
At worst, 4-1. At worst, Shane, 4-1.
Yeah. I mean, Tennessee's got a new quarterback. He's talented, but who knows? I mean, they were not good last year with Joe Milton. Are they going to be better with Lima Londler? I can't pronounce his name. Are they going to be better with
Nico?
I don't know. Nico. Yeah, Nico. Who knows? I don't think Florida State's going to be very good with DJ. there's a lot of question marks. The only two teams that I look at right now and say, I do not think we can beat them is Georgia and Texas.
Yeah. Yeah, those are going to be –
Ole Miss is good. Ole Miss is coming to our ballpark. And I brought this up last week, Mike. I think it was 24/7 or On3, put it on Twitter. Out of all the SEC teams, including Texas and Oklahoma, it had the last 5 years of everybody's home record. Where do you think the Gators rank out of the 16 SEC teams in home football records for the last 5 years?
Well, I mean, off the top of my head, I just think of too many losses to the likes of LSU, Kentucky. Middle of the pack.
We were 5th.
Really? I would have said like 7th. Yeah. Okay.
5th.
Okay.
On 3 of them were wrong because we talked about it.
No, I trust it.
No,
I trust it.
Well, this is Twitter, so you never know. But yeah, it was like it went Georgia, then Alabama, then I think Oklahoma, then LSU, and then Florida.
Yeah. But you know what, Shane? I mean, here's the thing. I'm glad you mentioned the Swamp. The Swamp needs to get back to being the Swamp. I mean, it hasn't felt that way in a while. And this goes pre-Billy. I mean, this goes back to Dan Mullen. It goes back to McElwain, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And obviously the number one reason is you're not winning enough. When you're winning enough, you can't get a ticket. The place is packed. And when the place is packed, it's loud as can be, much like that elevator you're getting on or whatever that is. But you've got to go ahead and return that as one of the scariest, most intimidating home field advantages. You have a whole new generation of college football fans and people that cover the sport that they just don't know what they don't know. They don't know what the Swamp was like in the 90s when you played. They don't know what it was like in the 2000s when Urban Meyer was winning national championships. They don't know because the Swamp, whether it's 5th or not over the last 5 years, it hasn't been quite the same. There's been too many empty seats. There's been too many losses. There's been too many games where it just felt like it was not the home environment that it used to be. You need to get back to that. Even a less than dominating program can be dominating at home. And that's what Florida should be dominating at home at bare minimum.
Yeah, Joseph says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon Law, Miami has an identical roster as the Gators from a talent standpoint. When you compare 3, 4, and 5-star kids on the roster, that game's going to be tough. Look, I get it. It's Miami, but this ain't Miami from the 90s, okay?
No.
They have been a worse program over the last 4 or 5 years than the Gators. They may have had a better record, but they've been playing in a terrible conference. Now, everybody's excited about them because they have Cam Ward. I get it. But I said this last week, Mike. Cam Ward has never been in an environment in his college playing career like he's going to roll into the Swamp on August 31st. There ain't no venues like that at Washington State and Incarnate Word.
No, I mean, look, Miami's been a train wreck. Yeah, I mean, this is the one program like Florida fans that are feeling a little bit down about what has happened to Gator football over the last decade or so. You could point to Miami and go, well, it could certainly be worse. I mean, Miami has been an absolute train wreck. So not only is Miami not the Miami of the 90s or the early 2000s, Miami hasn't even been like mediocre. Miami plays in a less than stellar conference, and at times they've just been awful. And then they've fired coaches and they keep thinking they've got and Cristobal was supposed to be the ultimate slam dunk hire going back to his alma mater. He knows Miami football, and they haven't been that good under him either. So yeah, Cam Ward was a great pickup in the portal, but I don't know if Miami has like a distinct advantage on the line of scrimmage, at the skilled position, in the second. Like, what is Miami really good at? What does Miami hang its hat on? What players on the Miami roster are you going, oh boy, that's an All-American, he's going to be a major problem? I mean, honestly, I think it's a fairly even matchup, Shane. But as you mentioned, the game is at home. So I haven't even checked early lines, but I would think Florida's a slight favorite.
I think somebody said Miami's favored by 2, which shocks me. I think
Is that
will
right?
change
Okay.
by the time kickoff, that will change. Joseph says we're clearly not the Gators from the '90s either. That's true, but we've been a better program in the last 25 years than those guys have. And I'm telling you right now, they have not played at all. Not even just Cam Ward. Nobody on their roster has played anywhere like they're going to come in on August 31st. I'm just telling you. Here's the other thing. I don't even think Miami's ever played when Miami went to the ACC, how many people said it's going to be Florida State and Miami playing for the ACC title every year? Have they
every year
played for the championship?
No,
I don't think
no, that was Shane. It was more than a concern. It was a fear when they went to divisions and they had Miami and Florida State in different divisions. The fear was, oh goodness, we just made it predictable. It's going to be Miami and Florida State every year in the ACC championship game. And what nobody predicted was Miami turned into a dumpster fire. Florida State had their dumpster fire period at the end of Bobby Bowden, at the end of Jimbo Fisher and beyond. Like nobody predicted that those two things would happen. Meanwhile, some guy named Dabo Sweeney, who was a wide receivers coach, turned Clemson from a mediocre program into a national power. And guys like Jim Grove and Clawson would turn Wake Forest into a team that would beat up Miami and Florida State. Like nobody saw that coming, but it happened. I think years from now, Shane, when you and I are in our rocking chairs at Shady Pines and feeding the ducks at our retirement home, we'll look back. We'll look back and say, what the hell happened to Florida, Florida State, and Miami football? I mean, there used to be a time where all three of those programs were top 10 at the same time, competing for national championships at the same time, and then all had this unbelievable fall from grace at the same time. Like, how does that happen in the state of Florida that is loaded with high school talent, facilities galore, except for Miami, finances, all these things that you need to stay on top of the world? They have it. Like, I know why Nebraska's bad. It's in the middle of a friggin' cornfield in Lincoln, Nebraska. How in the hell do three prominent programs in the Sunshine State, which has done nothing but gain population and popularity, how does that all happen? Years from now, in the rocking chair, Shane, as you feed the mallards right there at the pond, we're going to say, what the hell happened?
All right, before we get you out of here, Jane says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellow Law, go Gators from Kenay, I guess that's how you pronounce it, Kenay, Alaska. Come up
nice.
Fishing this summer before football season. There you go. We got people in Alaska listening.
Hell yeah. I've been to Anchorage for the Great Alaskan Shootout. It was a great week of time, but that was in the winter. I'd like to be in Alaska in like July. That'd be beautiful.
Yep. All right, last text on the Titan More text line from Willie, and this is interesting. He says, Mike, which football coach in the Southeastern Conference would you want to start your program with?
Ooh, great question. You know what? I would have never said this 10 years ago, but I'm going to say it now. Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
Kirby Smart has done a brilliant job. You know, Kirby almost got the job at South Carolina. And when South Carolina went after Kirby, what did Georgia do? They fired Mark Richt and brought in their prodigal son. If Kirby Smart would have gone to South Carolina, you think he'd be sitting on 2 national titles?
No.
Probably not. Okay. Kirby's a terrific coach, and he's the perfect guy for that job, but Georgia should be great. They should be, much like Florida should be great. What Lane Kiffin has done at Ole Miss is pretty damn impressive to me. He's matured. He's not the same guy that he was 10 years ago. I think he's won more with less. Ole Miss is a limited job. You know, they don't have the swamp. They don't have tradition. If you got to go back to 1960. I would actually, he's got some juice, he's got some recruiting power, and he knows how to draw up some offense. I'll go Lane Kiffin on that. It won't be a popular selection, but I'll go Lane Kiffin on that one.
No. All right. Well, we appreciate your time today, my man. And we'll let Jane know you're ready to come do some fishing in Alaska.
Heck yeah, Jane. Save a spot on the boat for me and Shane. Shane, always enjoy it. Love your audience and appreciate the job you do, buddy. Thank you much.
Yep, that's Mike Morgan from the SEC Network. Join us on the Titan Number Hotline. Take a quick time out, come back, get some more of these texts and Facebook Lives you're watching and listening to PodUp Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Campus USA, put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union.
Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise.
Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, watch. Our gridiron sponsors are UF Bookstores, Silverback Concrete, Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, F45, Quality Plumbing. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Dowling Signs, Baker Sporting Goods. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
The Fisher House is here for the families and veterans that come here to the VA for serious treatment. And we're here to give them a home away from home.
It's really nice to meet you.
Welcome to our house.
Really blown away with the level of care, the level of service that they offer here. Some of it may be more routine and some of it may be like, we gotta go now.
Yes.
Correct.
Because there's a ton to be said for coming through for people that chose a path, a little bit different path. That's why we're here today.
We're here to present these wonderful jerseys that Coach Billy Napier has so graciously given to the Fisher House that are going to be auctioned for the benefit of the house.
Anytime that we have a chance to give back to people who chose a career and a life of service and put their life at risk, right, to protect the simple things that we have access to each day, I think it's important that we do that. These jerseys are all for sale. They're on auction as we speak, right? And that goes all the way up until May 25th. I think this is an opportunity to not only purchase a pretty cool item, but also help the Fisher House at the same time.
We have 20 suites here at our house. That gives us the ability to serve between 1,200 and 1,500 families a year. It's for the serious treatment, the crisis in their life. So it's here that they find the comfort, find camaraderie with fellow guests. They're all going through the same thing at the same time. So they find that they're not alone here.
I would encourage anybody to do their homework on the Fisher House and get behind this cause.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Ruse Ogre State Farm offers a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visitogreinsurance.com. Give them a call at 352-240-1779. I want to get to a couple more. This text on the Titan MR text line from Langston. He wanted to know our thoughts on the Kyle Busch and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. fight. I didn't see it. I don't really follow much of NASCAR, so maybe some of our listeners know more about that than I do. Didn't see it. I'll have to look it up and find out. But again, I want to thank Mike Morgan for joining us on the Titan MR Hotline. If you missed it, Gator baseball takes two out of 3 from Georgia. We are now in postseason play, which is actually kind of a miracle, quite honestly. That the Gators are going to be playing in the postseason. Play Vanderbilt tomorrow, first game of the SEC tournament. as I just mentioned, if you missed it with Mike, I think Sully treats it as a midweek game because we just played on Saturday. We don't have our normal rest to pitch our normal pitchers, and winning games there is not going to improve us in any capacity for postseason play. So just put some young guys out there and see what happens. And if you get one and done, get on the bus and head home, and then figure out where you're going to go play. And like I said, the Gators is a 3 seed at some regional is some scary stuff. Reggie says that Mike and Shane can come on down to the Gulf and get on some red snapper. Appreciate that, Reggie. Let's get to this day in sports, brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Put some star power to work in your financial life at Campus USA Credit Union. I do not understand why I lose it every time I get on here, but we will, I'll have to just find a new one here. This is, oh, here it is right here. In 1930, the University of California dedicates $1,500 to research on prevention and cure of athlete's foot. That's this day in sports, brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Again, congratulations to Xander Schauffele. I had him in my Peachland Dental picks against JC, and we'll start doing a better job of recapping those on Mondays after our picks. But I had him and Victor Hovland, and JC, I think, had Morikawa, who had a very good tournament. Couldn't make a putt yesterday, but it's totally ridiculous for a major golf tournament on the PGA Tour for those guys to tear it up the way they did. Softball, the non-elite softball program that we have, according to Buddy, just giving Buddy a hard time. Just a couple of more run rule wins, and they advance, and we will host Baylor, who upset the Lady Raging Cajuns, and they were the 13 seed. So Baylor, I think that's the 24th, 25th, and 26th. Is that? I think it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday for that series to punch their ticket to another trip, OKC. So I don't think that might have been the only upset, I think, in softball. I tried to follow a little bit of it yesterday, but I was too busy watching golf. And so it should be a good weekend. Dan says softball has a shot at 6 of the 8 SEC teams in OKC. Okay. I meant to look at that this morning, but I couldn't find a bracket. No, Tony, I'm not playing golf today. I am traveling for work up in the Panhandle. So wish I was playing golf. So I could go play like Xander. Yeah, Dan says there's all chalk except Baylor. That's what I thought. So good opportunity for the Lady Gators. Boy, it's a good softball team. I know I talk a lot about them, but if you're not on board, jump on board now. Got a very good chance at advancing and possibly bringing home the national title. I know you got Texas and OU out there, but anything can happen when it comes to postseason play. Comfort Tip Heating and Air is looking for an enthusiastic, motivated comfort specialist to join our team. A $1,000 sign-on bonus after 90 days. Awesome benefits and the opportunity to grow with a winning team. Apply today at ComfortTemp.com. Comfort Temp Heating and Air. Comfort is our business. Peace of mind is our promise. Again, I want to thank Mike Morgan for joining the program. Tomorrow we'll have Buddy Martin, and we're going to have a guest from the Fisher House. Y'all have seen the commercial that is run from the black military jerseys that the Gators wore last year. Those are being auctioned off to go to military families, all the dollars that are raised. I think that silent auction ends this Saturday, but we'll discuss it more in detail tomorrow on the program. But, you know, Coach Napier, everybody was excited about the black uniforms. Now they have an opportunity to purchase one of those uniforms for a tremendous, tremendous cause. Hope everybody has a great day out there. We'll see you tomorrow, folks. Take care.